The smell of grilled onions and seared meat drifted through the empty merchant district as Leo Wright wiped down his food cart for the third time that night. Most vendors had packed up hours ago, but Leo preferred the quiet of the late shift. Fewer crowds meant actual conversations with customers instead of rushed orders and impatient glares. He flipped the last burger on his grill, watching the edges crisp up just right. A Venturi dock worker shuffled over, their forearms laden with cargo manifests. "The usual?" Leo asked. "Please. Long shift tonight." The Venturi's translator box crackled slightly. Leo assembled the sandwich with practiced ease, adding extra of the tangy sauce the Venturi species could actually taste. He'd spent weeks researching which Earth foods worked for different alien biology. The Venturi couldn't process tomatoes, but they loved pickled vegetables and mustard-based sauces. "On the house," Leo said, sliding the wrapped sandwich across the counter. "You'll go broke doing that," the Venturi replied, but their eye stalks curled in what Leo had learned was a smile. "Nah, you guys keep me company. That's worth something." The dock worker left, and Leo started his closing routine. He scraped the grill clean and sorted through the day's leftover ingredients. Some things he could save for tomorrow. Others would spoil by morning. He was about to toss a batch of slightly overcooked meat strips when he heard a sound, a tiny chirp, almost like a bird but deeper. Leo turned slowly. 3 small creatures huddled near the corner of his cart, partially hidden behind a stack of empty crates. They were unlike anything he'd seen in his 2 years on Cairo Station. Reptilian, covered in scales that shimmered even in the dim light. One was deep red, another blue, and the third a pale green. They were no bigger than cats, with wings folded tight against their bodies and enormous eyes that reflected the glow from his grill. "Hey there," Leo said softly, crouching down to seem less threatening. The creatures flinched but didn't run. The red one took a tentative step forward, nostrils flaring. They were hungry. Leo recognized that look. He'd worn it himself during the war, during those long months when supply lines broke down and soldiers made do with whatever they could scavenge. "You want some food?" He held out one of the meat strips. The red creature crept closer, movements cautious and deliberate. It sniffed the meat, then looked back at its companions as if asking permission. The blue one chirped softly. The red one snatched the meat and retreated, tearing into it with surprising delicacy. Leo smiled. He set out 2 more strips for the others. The blue and green creatures approached together, moving in perfect synchronization. Within seconds, all 3 were eating, their tiny tails swishing with what looked like contentment. "Where did you come from?" Leo wondered aloud. "You guys look way too exotic to be strays." The creatures ignored him, focused entirely on their meal. When they finished, they sat back on their haunches and stared at him with those huge, intelligent eyes. There was something unsettling about that gaze. These weren't simple animals. They were thinking, evaluating, understanding. "You need names if you're going to keep showing up," Leo said. He pointed at the red one. "Ruby," then the blue one. "Cobalt," finally the green one. "Jade." Simple enough. Ruby chirped again, and the sound almost seemed like agreement. Leo pulled out his datapad and started searching the station's public databases for information about dragon-like species. There were dozens of reptilian races in this sector, but none that matched these 3 exactly. Some entries mentioned dragonkin, an ancient species that served in various governmental positions, but the images showed creatures much larger and more formidable than these babies. "You 3 lost?" he asked. "Somebody missing you?" No answer, of course. Just those steady, watchful stares. Leo packed up the rest of his supplies and locked down the cart. The 3 creatures watched every movement. When he started to walk away, they followed at a distance, staying in the shadows. "I don't have much back in my quarters," Leo called over his shoulder. "And I don't know what you eat besides mystery meat. But tomorrow I'll figure something out." "Deal." Ruby chirped once more, and all 3 creatures stopped following. They sat together near the cart, huddled close like they were waiting for something. Leo hesitated. Every instinct told him these weren't ordinary strays. But he learned long ago that sometimes you helped people, or creatures, simply because they needed it. No other reason required. Tomorrow night, he promised. I'll bring something better. He walked back to his small apartment, mind already working through nutritional databases and ingredient lists. If these three were going to keep visiting, he'd feed them properly. It was what he did, what he was good at. Behind him, invisible in the darkness, Ruby turned to her siblings and transmitted a thought to their mother far across the station. The human fed us. He was kind. We will return. Governor Shun received the message and frowned at her desk, reviewing surveillance footage of the merchant district. A human food vendor. Unremarkable. Probably irrelevant to the smuggling investigation. Still, she made a note in her files. If her children found him interesting, perhaps there was more to observe. The night shift continued on Calrose Station, and in a small apartment nearby, Leo Wright researched dragon nutrition until his eyes grew heavy and sleep finally claimed him. Tomorrow night, he'd make them something special. Governor Shun Xiao pinched the bridge of her nose and stared at the holographic display floating above her desk. 3 red markers blinked in the merchant district, each representing a confirmed smuggling drop point. 2 more yellow markers indicated suspected locations. The entire lower quarter of Calrose Station had become a haven for black market operations, and every attempt to root them out had failed spectacularly. They know we're watching, her security chief said, mandibles clicking in frustration. Every surveillance drone gets hacked. Every undercover agent gets identified within days. Shin's claws tapped against her desk. She was dragonkin, one of the oldest species in this sector, and her kind had not survived millennia by accepting defeat. There were other options. Difficult options. Leave me, she said. The security chief bowed and exited. Shin waited until the door sealed before activating the privacy shield around her office. What she was considering would raise questions. Ethical questions. But desperate times called for unconventional solutions. She opened a secure channel to her private quarters. 3 small forms materialized on her communication screen. Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade. Her children, barely 6 months old in dragonkin terms, still developing their telepathic abilities, still learning about the world. Mother, Ruby's voice echoed in Shun's mind, clear and bright. I have a task for you, Shun said aloud, preferring speech for serious matters. The station faces a threat. Criminals operate in the merchant district, and our normal methods cannot catch them. We can help. Cobalt chimed in eagerly. Shun felt a pang of guilt. Her children were young, innocent, but they possessed a unique advantage. Dragonkin young were telepathically linked to their parents until they reached maturity. They could observe, record, and transmit everything they experienced directly to her mind. And unlike drones or agents, no one would suspect 3 small creatures wandering the district. You will pose as strays, Shun explained. Abandoned young looking for food and shelter. You will watch the merchants, the buyers, the movement of goods. No one will notice you. This sounds like a game, Jade said, excitement coloring her mental voice. It is not a game. It is dangerous. But I will monitor you constantly through our link. At any sign of true threat, you return immediately. The children agreed enthusiastically, already imagining their adventure. Shun provided them with detailed instructions, then released them into the district after dark, when foot traffic was minimal. For the first week, the operation proceeded as planned. Her children wandered the merchant area, observing transactions, following suspicious individuals, reporting everything back to her. Shun compiled the data, cross-referenced it with official shipping manifests, and began identifying patterns. Then the reports started changing. The night human gave us food again, Ruby reported on the 8th night. Shun pulled up the surveillance footage. A human running a food cart. Young, possibly military background based on his posture and efficiency. Leo Wright, according to station records. Former Earth military, honorably discharged, no criminal record. Maintain distance, Shun ordered. Do not compromise the operation. But the reports continued. Every night, her children returned to that cart. Every night, the human fed them. Shun watched the footage repeatedly, looking for signs of suspicious activity. Perhaps Wright was using the cart as a cover for smuggling. Perhaps he was a lookout for the criminal networks, yet she found nothing. He simply cooked food and sold it to late shift workers. He cleaned his equipment meticulously. He chatted with customers about meaningless topics like weather and sports. He's researching our species, Cobalt reported excitedly. He wants to make us proper meals. Shin felt alarms spike through their link. He suspects what you are. No, mother. He thinks we are strays. He wants to help us. This confused Shin more than any criminal activity would have. Why would a human spend resources and time on creatures that provided him nothing in return? It made no strategic sense. He talks to us while he works, Jade added. He tells us stories about Earth, about rain and oceans and things called trees that grow from the ground. Irrelevant information, Shin said sharply. Focus on the mission. But her children's reports grew increasingly detailed about the human and increasingly vague about actual surveillance targets. They described the way he modified recipes for different species, the care he took with food preparation, the gentle tone he used when speaking to them. Shun pulled more surveillance data. She watched Wright defend a drunk customer from starting a fight. She watched him give free meals to workers who'd clearly fallen on hard times. She watched him stay an extra hour past closing to help a lost Quelvan child find their parents. None of this fit the profile of a criminal. Yet her children were becoming attached to him, and that was dangerous. Dragonkin did not bond outside their family units. It was not in their nature. Tomorrow night, you will expand your surveillance range, Shin ordered. Cover the eastern docks. There are shipments arriving that require observation. But that's when the human feeds us, Ruby protested. Shun's eyes narrowed. Her children had never questioned an order before. The mission is more important than one meal. Silence from all three children. Not agreement, but not quite disobedience either. Shun felt unease creep through her thoughts. She had expected many complications from this operation. Attachment to a random human food vendor had not been among them. She terminated the link and pulled up Wright's file again. There had to be something she was missing. Some detail that explained why her children, trained since hatching to value duty and family above all else, were developing loyalty to a stranger. The file remained maddeningly ordinary. Leo Wright, age 30, Earth Colony designation pending. Military service, 5 years, kitchen corps. Current occupation, independent food vendor. No family on station. No close associates. No suspicious contacts. Just a human who cooked food and fed strays. Shun made a decision. If her children would not tell her the full truth about this human, she would discover it herself. Tomorrow night, she would visit the merchant district personally. She would observe this Leo Wright with her own eyes, and if he posed any threat to her children or her operation, she would end him without hesitation. Leo arranged 3 small bowls on the corner of his cart, each filled with a carefully prepared mixture. He'd spent the last week studying Dragonkin nutritional requirements, cross-referencing them with ingredients he could actually source on his limited budget. The result looked like a strange combination of minced protein, calcium-rich vegetables, and a vitamin supplement he ground into powder. All right, you 3, he called into the darkness. Come try this. It's probably terrible, but at least it's nutritionally balanced. Ruby emerged first as always. She'd grown bolder over the past 2 weeks, sometimes appearing before Leo even finished setting up his cart. Cobalt and Jade followed close behind, their scales catching the light from the overhead lamps. Leo watched them eat, noting which ingredients they favored and which they avoided. Ruby loved anything with a strong taste. Cobalt preferred softer textures. Jade ate everything, but always saved the vegetables for last. You guys are getting bigger, Leo observed. That's good. Means I'm doing something right. A group of dock workers approached the cart, laughing about something that had happened during their shift. Leo served them efficiently, but he noticed they kept glancing at the 3 dragons. Those your pets? One of them asked, a belter with mechanical augments replacing half his face. More like regular customers, Leo replied. They showed up hungry. I fed them. Now, they keep coming back. Smart creatures, dragons, another worker said. My cousin works in the governor's office. Says dragonkin are telepathic. Those little ones might understand every word you're saying. Leo laughed. Then they know I'm terrible at telling jokes. The workers finished their meals and left, but the comment stuck with Leo. He looked at Ruby, who was washing her face with one small claw, and wondered how much the three of them actually understood. "You guys are smart, aren't you?" he said quietly. "Not just animal smart. Real smart." Ruby chirped and tilted her head. Over the following nights, the cart became something unexpected. Word spread about the human who fed dragons, and more customers started showing up out of curiosity. They'd order food, then linger to watch the three creatures. Some brought small gifts, bits of metal or shiny objects that Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade collected with obvious delight. An elderly Quelven named Torish became a regular, arriving each night with stories about her homeworld. She fled a civil war decades ago and never returned. Leo listened as he cooked, offering quiet understanding when she cried. "This food tastes like my childhood," Torish said one night, clutching a bowl of Leo's soup. "I don't know how you did it. We never shared recipes with humans." "I asked around," Leo admitted. "Found a Quelven merchant who helped me figure out the spices. Took 17 tries to get it right." Torish stared at him. "You did that for me. You're a customer. You deserve food you'll actually enjoy." The three dragons watched these exchanges intently, their eyes tracking every gesture, every expression. Leo had started talking to them more, sharing stories about Earth while he worked. "My sister used to make this dish," he told them one night, preparing a batch of fried dough. "She wasn't a great cook, but she tried. That's what mattered, you know? Trying. Caring enough to make the effort." Ruby made a soft, trilling sound that Leo had learned meant she was content. "I joined the military because I thought I'd make a difference," Leo continued, his hands moving automatically through familiar motions. "Turnout war is mostly just watching people suffer. So when my term ended, I came here. Figured feeding people was a better way to help." He didn't notice the way all three dragons had gone completely still, absorbing every word point one night. Trouble arrived in the form of a drunk Corvin who took offense at having to wait for his order. He slammed his fist on the cart, rattling Leo's equipment. "You serve aliens before your own kind," the Corvin snarled. "I serve whoever's next in line," Leo replied calmly. "You want food or not?" The Corvin reached across the cart to grab Leo's shirt. Before Leo could react, three small dragons launched themselves at the aggressor, wings spread, tiny flames flickering at the edges of their mouths. The Corvins stumbled backward, shocked. Station security arrived moments later, called by other customers. They removed the drunk man, but not before he'd gotten a good look at the protective stance the dragons had taken in front of Leo. "You all right?" a security officer asked. "Fine," Leo said. He looked down at Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade, who were still positioned between him and potential danger. "Thanks, guys, but you shouldn't put yourselves at risk for me." Ruby chirped insistently, as if arguing. Leo crouched down to their level. "I mean it. You're just kids. I'm supposed to look after you, not the other way around." He reached out slowly, and for the first time, Ruby allowed him to touch her head. Her scales were warm, almost hot, and surprisingly smooth. Across the station, Shun jerked in her chair as the sensation transferred through their telepathic link. She felt the warmth of the human's hand, the genuine concern in his voice, the way his heart rate had spiked when her children were threatened. She pulled up the security footage of the incident, watching it from multiple angles. The human had positioned himself to shield her children even as they tried to defend him. He'd been more worried about their safety than his own. This made no sense. Humans were supposed to be self-interested, survival-focused. Every profile, every assessment of human psychology emphasized their individualistic nature. Yet here was one who'd rather protect three creatures he believed were strays than avoid potential harm. Shin stood from her desk and made a decision. Tomorrow night, she would go to the merchant district herself. She would speak with this Leo right directly, observe him without the filter of surveillance equipment. She had to understand what her children saw in him, because whatever it was, it had changed them in ways she'd never anticipated. Shun wore a simple disguise, her natural form concealed beneath a holographic projection that made her appear as a common dragonkin trader. She'd removed all insignia of her office, dressed in plain clothes, and made sure no one from her security detail followed her to the merchant district. The food cart stood at the corner of the main thoroughfare, exactly where surveillance had shown it would be. A human worked behind the counter, moving with the kind of efficiency that came from military training. Shin observed him for several minutes before approaching. He looked up as she neared, offering a polite nod. "What can I get you? What do you recommend?" Shun asked, testing him. Leo studied her for a moment. His eyes were sharp, observant. "You're dragonkin, right? Your species has trouble with acidic foods, so I'd skip the tomato-based stuff. The grilled meat skewers with herb sauce work well. I've got a grain bowl with roasted vegetables that most dragonkin customers enjoy." Shin felt a small surprise. He'd identified her species correctly despite the holographic disguise and immediately adjusted his recommendations. "The grain bowl," she said. Leo assembled the dish with practiced care, asking questions as he worked. "Spice preference? Some dragonkin like heat, others don't. Mild." He nodded and added a different sauce than he'd initially reached for. When he handed her the bowl, the aroma was perfect. Shin took it to one of the small tables Leo had set up nearby and began eating. The food was excellent. More than excellent. It was prepared with an understanding of dragonkin taste receptors that most chefs never bothered to learn. Each ingredient complemented the others, creating a balance that her species could fully appreciate. Leo served 3 more customers, chatting easily with each one. A Venturi received extra pickled vegetables without asking. A Belter got her portion adjusted to account for her augmented metabolism. A young Quelvan was treated with gentle patience as they struggled to decide what to order. First time eating human food, Leo asked the Quelvan kindly. "Yes, I am nervous. What if I choose wrong?" "No wrong choices here. How about I make you a sampler? Small portions of 3 different things. You can figure out what you like." The Quelvan's face brightened. Leo prepared the sampler without charging extra, explaining each item as he worked. Shun watched all of this while pretending to focus on her meal. This human showed the same care to everyone. No favoritism, no judgment. Just consistent, genuine hospitality. Then 3 familiar forms emerged from the shadows. Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade approached the cart, and Shun's breath caught. Through their telepathic link, she felt their joy at seeing the human. "Pure, uncomplicated happiness." "There you are," Leo said warmly. "I was starting to worry. Thought maybe you'd found somewhere better to eat." He set out their bowls, already prepared. The 3 dragons ate eagerly, and Leo watched them with obvious affection. Shun felt something twist in her chest. Her children had never shown such open emotion before. Dragonkin were taught from hatching to maintain control, to keep feelings private and contained. Yet here they were, practically radiating contentment. "You've been feeding them for a while," Shun said, breaking her silence. Leo looked over at her. "About 3 weeks now. They showed up hungry. Couldn't just ignore that. They might belong to someone. Maybe. But whoever owns them isn't feeding them properly. Look at them now compared to when they first arrived. They were half-starved." Shun bristled at the implication. Her children had been well fed, but she had to admit they did look healthier now. Their scales had more luster, their movements more energy. "You're not worried they might be dangerous?" Shun asked. Leo smiled. "They're babies, and they've been nothing but sweet. Besides, everyone deserves kindness, don't you think? Especially kids. Even if they're not your species. Especially then. We're all just trying to survive out here. Might as well help each other when we can." Shin studied him carefully. "That's an unusual philosophy for a human, is it?" "I don't think so. Most humans I know would do the same. The war records suggest otherwise." Leo's expression shifted, becoming more guarded. The war was complicated. People do terrible things when they're scared and desperate. But that doesn't mean humans are inherently cruel. Just means we're flawed, like everyone else. He turned back to his grill, adjusting the heat. "You seem stressed," he said after a moment. "Rough day." Shin almost laughed. This human had no idea who he was speaking to, yet he'd read her emotional state accurately. "You could say that. I have responsibilities that often feel overwhelming." "What kind of work do you do?" "Administration." Managing systems, solving problems. Leo nodded sympathetically. That sounds exhausting. No wonder you're tense. He prepared another dish without her asking, something warm and aromatic. On the house. You look like you could use it. Shin accepted the food, confused by the gesture. Why would you give this to me for free? Because sometimes people need someone to be kind to them. No strings attached. Just kindness. Shin ate slowly, watching her children interact with Leo. They trusted him completely, showed him a vulnerability they'd never shown anyone outside their family unit. And Leo reciprocated, treating them with gentle care. Do you have children? Shin asked. No, never had the chance. Military kept me moving around too much for that kind of stability. Yet you care for these creatures as if they were your own. Leo glanced at Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade. I guess, Ido. They needed someone. I was here. Simple as that. It wasn't simple, Shun thought. It was profoundly complex. This human had formed a bond with her children based on nothing but proximity and need. He asked for nothing in return, expected no reward, operated purely from a place of compassion. Her species didn't work this way. Dragonkin formed calculated relationships, alliances based on mutual benefit. Even family bonds served functional purposes, strengthening the clan's position. But Leo, right, seemed to operate on entirely different principles. I should go, Shin said, standing. Thank you for the meal. Come back any time, Leo replied with genuine warmth. Shin walked away, her mind spinning. She'd come here expecting to find a criminal or a fool. Instead, she found something far more unsettling. A human who embodied virtues her own species claimed to value but rarely practiced. Her children had learned something from Leo that no amount of traditional dragonkin education could teach. They'd learned what genuine, unconditional care looked like, and that terrified her more than any smuggling ring ever could. The alert came through at 0300 hours. Shin stared at the data streaming across her screen, finally seeing the pattern she'd been hunting for weeks. A major smuggling operation was scheduled for tonight, moving weapons-grade materials through the merchant district. Everything pointed to a coordinated effort involving at least 6 different criminal organizations. We need every asset, her security chief said, mandibles clicking rapidly, including the young ones. Shunfell eyes spread through her chest. Her children were still in the merchant district, still maintaining their cover as strays. Pulling them now meant ending the surveillance operation, but the smuggling bust took priority. Recall them, she ordered. The security chief nodded and left. Shin opened her telepathic link to her children. Return to headquarters immediately. There is danger in the district tonight. Silence. Then Ruby's voice, tentative and uncertain. But the human will worry if we don't appear. The human is not your concern. This is a direct order. Mother, please. Let's tell him goodbye. Let us warn him to stay away tonight. Absolutely not. You will compromise operational security. Come home now. Shun felt resistance through the link, something that had never happened before. Her children, obedient since hatching, were questioning her authority. He's been kind to us, Cobalt said softly. We owe him honesty. You owe him nothing. He fed you because that's what humans do. It means nothing. It means everything, Jade replied, her mental voice firm. Shin severed the link abruptly, shocked by her children's defiance. She activated her communicator. Security team, retrieve the subjects immediately. Use containment protocols if necessary. She hated herself for giving that order. But the stakes were too high. The smugglers were moving enough contraband to arm a small military force. If they succeeded, people would die. Her children would understand eventually. They had to die in the merchant district. Ruby felt the link close and turned to her siblings. We have to warn him. Mother forbade it, Cobalt said, but his wings twitched with agitation. Mother is wrong, Ruby replied. The human cares for us. He protected us. We cannot let him walk into danger unknowing. Jade's scales rippled. Security will come for us soon. Then we move quickly. The 3 dragons launched into the air, wings beating hard as they flew toward Leo's cart. They could feel their mother's fury through the link, her commands to stop, to obey, to return. But for the first time in their young lives, they chose a different loyalty. Leo was setting up his cart when they arrived, earlier than usual. He looked surprised. "Hey, you three. You're here early. Everything okay?" Ruby landed on the counter and chirped urgently, trying to convey warning. Cobalt and Jade joined her, all three making distress sounds that Leo's military instincts activated immediately. "Something's wrong. You're trying to tell me something." He looked around the district. Everything seemed normal, but Leo had learned to trust his gut. "Is there danger? Should I close up and leave?" Ruby bobbed her head frantically. Leo didn't question it. He began securing his cart with practiced speed, locking down equipment and pulling the protective covers. "All right, I'm listening. Where should I go?" The dragons pulled at his sleeves, trying to guide him away from the district. But before Leo could follow, figures emerged from the shadows. Not customers. Wrong body language, wrong movement patterns. Leo recognized threat assessment in an instant. "Get behind me," he told the dragons. The figures were criminals, Leo realized. Here early to scout the location before the main operation. And they'd noticed him and the dragons. "Witnesses are a problem," one of them said, raising a weapon that Leo's training took over. He grabbed a metal pan from his cart and threw it with precision, striking the gunman's hand. The weapon clattered away. Leo vaulted over his cart, putting himself between the attackers and the dragons. Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade refused to hide. They positioned themselves alongside Leo, wings spread, ready to defend him as he defended them. "You kids need to run," Leo said through gritted teeth. Ruby chirped defiantly. The criminals advanced, and Leo prepared to fight with whatever tools he could grab. He'd survived worse odds during the war. He could protect 3 small dragons. Then station security flooded the area, weapons drawn. The criminals scattered, trying to escape, but the security forces had them surrounded. Within minutes, the situation was contained, and at the center of it all stood Shun, her disguise abandoned, her full authority on display. She strode toward Leo and her children, expression unreadable. Leo stared at her, then at the 3 dragons. Recognition dawned slowly. "They're yours." "They are," Shun confirmed. "You were using them as spies." "Yes." Leo felt betrayal cut through him. "I fed them, cared for them, thought they were strays who needed help. And all this time, they were just gathering intelligence." Shin opened her mouth to respond, but Ruby moved first. She launched herself at Leo, wrapping around his arm and trilling desperately. Cobalt and Jade followed, pressing close to him. Through the telepathic link, Shun felt what her children felt. Their fear that Leo would reject them. Their desperate need to make him understand that their affection had been real, not part of any mission. "They disobeyed direct orders to warn you," Shin said quietly. "They risked everything to ensure your safety." Leo looked down at the 3 dragons clinging to him. "Why?" "Because you showed them something dragonkin do not teach. You showed them unconditional kindness." Leo's anger softened. He stroked Ruby's head gently. "I wasn't being kind for a reward. I just wanted to help." "I know. That's what makes it remarkable." Shin felt something shift inside her. This human had changed her children in ways she couldn't undo. They would never be the same. And perhaps that wasn't something to mourn. The security office felt too formal, too cold. Leo sat across from Shun while Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade huddled together on a cushioned platform nearby. The criminals had been arrested, the contraband seized, but the conversation ahead would be far more difficult than any tactical operation. "You have every right to be angry," Shin began. "I used my children to gather intelligence. You became collateral observation in that process." Leo's jaw tightened. "You let me believe they were abandoned, starving. I spent my own money researching their nutrition, worried I'd feed them something harmful. I know, and I watch you do it. Every night, I receive their reports. I saw your kindness through their eyes. Then why didn't you stop it? Why let it continue?" Shin looked at her children. "Because I was trying to understand what they saw in you. Dragonkin do not form attachments easily. We value family and clan, but outsiders remain exactly that. Outsiders. Yet my children bonded with you within days." Ruby made a soft sound, and Shin felt waves of emotion through their link. Love, loyalty, trust, all directed at the human sitting across from her. What they learned from you, Shun continued, is something I could never teach them. You showed them that compassion doesn't require share biology, that caring for someone can be its own reward. Leo rubbed his face tiredly. I'm not some saint. I'm just a guy who runs a food cart. You're more than that. You saw creatures in need and helped them, expecting nothing in return. You created a space where dozens of species feel welcome and valued. You defend the vulnerable, even when it puts you at risk. Shin leaned forward. That is not common, Leo right. Not among humans, not among dragonkin, not among any species I've encountered. So what happens now? You take them away, and I go back to my cart like none of this happened. Shin felt her children's distress spike through the link. I could do that. It would be simpler. My children would eventually forget, return to their training, become proper dragonkin. But I would be destroying something precious. And I would be teaching them that duty matters more than genuine connection. I'm not certain that's the lesson they should learn. Leo studied Shin carefully. What are you suggesting? The station needs someone who can bridge cultural divides. Someone who understands different species not through academic study, but through genuine interaction. Your cart has become a community hub in the merchant district. Crime has decreased in the area simply because people gather there because they feel invested in protecting that space. You want me to work for you? I want to formalize what you're already doing. Community liaison, cultural integration specialist. You keep your cart, but with official support. Better equipment, better supplies. Access to resources that can help you serve more people. And your children? Shin looked at Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade. They may visit you. Openly now. No more pretending to be strays. Ruby launched herself from the platform, landing on Leo's shoulder. She nuzzled against his neck, and Leo couldn't help but smile. They really care about you, Shin said softly. More than they've cared about anyone outside our family. That should terrify me, but instead, I find myself grateful. You've taught them empathy in a way traditional education never could. Leo gently stroked Ruby's scales. I didn't mean to interfere with their upbringing. You didn't interfere. You enhanced it. My children will grow into leaders someday. Better that they lead with compassion than cold calculation. What about the honesty thing? You still lied to me for weeks. Yes, and I apologize. But I'm offering honesty now. Complete honesty going forward. No more surveillance. No more deception. Just a partnership between someone who wants to help this community and someone who governs it. Leo considered the proposal. He'd come to Kauros Station to escape the violence of war, to find peace in simple work. But perhaps peace wasn't about hiding from responsibility. Perhaps it was about finding meaningful ways to contribute. One condition, Leo said. If I do this, we do it right. No using food access as political leverage. No favoring certain species over others. Everyone gets treated equally. Shin inclined her head. Agreed. And these three get proper meals whenever they want. No using food as a training tool or reward system. Also agreed. Leo extended his hand. Shin looked at it, then clasped it in her clawed hand. The gesture felt significant, symbolic of something larger than a simple employment agreement. 2 weeks later, Leo's cart reopened with a new sign. Leo's Kitchen. All species welcome. The equipment was upgraded, the supply chain secured, but the philosophy remained unchanged. Good food, fair prices, genuine hospitality. Ruby, Cobalt, and Jade visited every evening, no longer hiding their connection to the governor. Customers found it charming, the sight of Dragonkin Young helping the human chef serve meals. Other vendors in the district followed Leo's example, creating spaces where different species could mingle without tension. Crime continued to decrease. Not because of increased surveillance, but because communities that felt connected protected themselves. People looked out for their neighbors, reported suspicious activity, intervened when they saw injustice. Shun visited occasionally, always ordering the grain bowl, always staying to observe. She watched her children learn about teamwork, about service, about the satisfaction that came from making others happy. They would grow into different leaders than she'd originally envisioned. Better leaders, perhaps. One night, as Leo closed down the cart, he looked at the 3 dragons helping him clean up. Ruby organized the supplies. Cobalt wash bowls. Jade swept the area around the cart. "You guys didn't have to help," Leo said. Ruby chirped, and Leo had learned to interpret the sound. It meant something like family helps family. He smiled. He'd left Earth alone, running from memories of war and loss. But here, in the strangest place imaginable, he'd found something he'd never expected he'd found home. Shun watched from a distance, her telepathic link open to her children. She felt their contentment, their sense of purpose, their love for the strange human who'd changed their understanding of the universe. She'd started this operation hoping to catch criminals. Instead, she'd learned that sometimes the most important discoveries had nothing to do with the mission parameters. Sometimes you found something far more valuable than you'd been looking for. And sometimes, the best way to protect your people was to let them be changed by the kindness of strangers.